What is a resolution? A resolution is a firm decision to do something or not to do something. And within the next 24 hours, many people in the world will be making New Year's resolutions as they enter the worldly year, the Roman year of 2023. This was the top resolution in the United States, Britain, Australia, and Europe last year. Second one, linked it, eat healthier. Third one, realize they all linked, to lose weight. Fourth one was to spend more time with family. And the fifth most popular resolution was to save more money. Unfortunately, this exercise of making New Year's resolutions is one of doom and failure. Actually, some describe it as an exercise of futility. Why? When we look at the statistics, we would realize why. Next week, by the end of next week, 25% will quit whatever resolution they made. By the end of January, 64% of the people who made resolutions would have quitted. And by February, it's worse. 81% would have quitted. So that's why experts say making resolutions for many people is an exercise in futility. And only 9%, some polls vary. It went to 10, it went to 8, it went to 7. So I just took the mean. 9% of people who make resolutions keep them. So out of 100 people making resolutions tomorrow, only 9 people will be successful in keeping their resolutions. And I was reading further that there's a day that they call Quitters Day, and this day came about because of there's an app that people have, a running and cycling app run by a group called Strava. And what they learned is that the second Friday in January is the day that most people end resolutions. They realize after that they can't continue with whatever they decided. So they call it Quitters Day. It was interesting to read all of these things because I was thinking about the implications that they have for us when we make spiritual resolutions. And you may ask, when or why do we make spiritual resolutions? And we always make spiritual resolutions when we are coming up to the next set of holidays, which would be the spring holidays, especially Passover season. And we are all encouraged to examine ourselves. And not only examine, improve spiritually. So if we are to examine ourselves and improve spiritually, it means therefore that we have to make some resolutions in our lives. So 1 Corinthians 11, 27 to 28 tells us, so then, whoever eats the bread or drinks the cup of the Lord in an unworthy manner will be guilty of sinning against the body and blood of the Lord. Everyone, you and I, ought to examine themselves before they eat of the bread and drink from the cup. So the goal of physical resolutions was simply to improve the physical lives of the people. We look at the number one goals: exercise more, lose weight, eat healthier. But the goal of our spiritual resolutions mirrors that, to improve our spiritual lives. What are some spiritual resolutions we could make before the Passover? 1, devoting more time to diligent prayer. not just passing in the morning in 2 minutes as you wake up and you're running late. It means getting time to pray diligently, to talk to God, to communicate. Fasting more frequently. This is one I always make, and this is one I don't always fulfill, because we all desire to fast more frequently, but times when we get into the hectic schedule of work, finding time sometimes prove to be difficult. Another one, actively studying and meditating on the Word of God. Not only reading, meditating on the Word that we just read. Serving the brethren. Not only the brethren, others around. We could make a spiritual resolution to serve more. We are called to a life of service. Overcoming sin in our personal lives. When we examine our lives, we would see sins that we need to overcome. So we could make that resolution, I have to overcome this sin. Developing more fruits of the Spirit. And this last resolution, if we look at Galatians 5:22 to 23, it gives us some of the fruits of the Spirit that we could develop more. Love, joy, peace, forbearance, kindness, goodness, faithfulness, gentleness, and self-control. So these are just some spiritual resolutions that we could make in our lives to do better in, to put on more of, to display more of to others. When people see us, they should see these things in us. So those are some spiritual resolutions. You could come up with your own as you examine yourself. But unlike the many who fail to complete their physical resolutions, we need to fulfill our spiritual resolutions. The person who does not fulfill his or her physical resolution may not benefit physically. But the Bible warns us about continuing to fulfill our spiritual resolutions. Revelation 3:10 tells us, because you have kept my command to persevere. So we just don't make the resolution and stop. It is a life we have been called to persevere to the end. I also will keep you from the hour of trial, which shall come upon the whole world to test those who dwell on the earth. So that is one benefit of persevering with our spiritual resolutions. Another scripture that tells us about the benefits is in 2 Timothy chapter 2 and verse 12. If we endure, we shall also reign with him. If we deny him, he also will deny us. So we have to endure if we want to reign with Christ. We can't do like the 81%, make a resolution and fail. We must be in the successful 9% or 8% who make that resolution to change spiritually. We must succeed. So today I just want to share before I end some points in making successful spiritual resolutions. Especially as Passover season comes around, we want to be successful in whatever decision we make. We want to be a success. Now, my points are not the be all and end all. There are other points that you could get. I just put 5 because of time. One of the things that psychologists realize, and I read, is that people who make successful resolutions make the resolution a habit in their lives. So whatever resolution we make, it must become a habit. If it is to pray more diligently, if it is to fast more often, it is to become a part of our life, a habit. So what are some points to be successful? One, simplest one, write it down. Telling yourself that I will pray more diligently is a thought. And thoughts tend to move once we go back into our lives where work, family, responsibilities start to make our lives hectic. We don't have time for thoughts, but writing down something narrows our focus. It's better than making a mental note. It solidifies that idea that you and I have to do this. So I will pray more diligently. And when I write it, I put it in a place of prominence where I could see it. I wouldn't write it and put it in the back pocket and leave it. But if I put it in a place of prominence, it is always there to remind me that I have planned to do whatever spiritual resolution I decided. Written goals force you to focus more on attaining them. This principle it can be found in the Bible in Deuteronomy chapter 17, verses 18 to 19. When Moses was laying out the rules for the future kingdom of Israel, when they would have kings. And this is what he said. This is what is recorded. When he takes the throne of his kingdom, he is to write for himself on his scroll a copy of this law. So he wouldn't read it, or he wouldn't have others read it to him. He is to write it for himself. Why? Because he has to focus on the law. It has to be solidified in his mind. It is to be with him, verse 19, and he is to read it all the days of his life. So if we make a goal, a spiritual goal, before Passover, let's write it. Let's put it in a place of prominence where we could see it. So there will always be a reminder. Second one, quickly, set an attainable goal. Most people fail because the goals that they set are unattainable. For example, if you desire to fast more, setting a goal like fasting 3 times a week, that might be impractical, especially if you're working. But setting a goal of fasting 3 times a month is easily attainable. And once you set a goal that is easily attainable, you could always increase the goals that you set. So if you set a goal to fast twice a month and you attain it, you move on to the next step, fast 3 times a month, or you spend 45 minutes in diligent study and prayer. And once you attain that, you move on to an hour, rather than saying, I will spend 3 hours, and you want to move from 50 minutes to 3 hours, it will be unattainable. So you set attainable goals. Luke 14, 28 to 30 talks about that principle. Christ was talking about this calling he has where we need to count the cost. And from the NIV version, he states, don't begin until you count the costs. For who would begin construction of a building without first calculating the cost to see if there's enough money to finish it? Otherwise, you might complete only the foundation before running out of money. And then everyone would laugh at you. They would say, here's the person who started that building and couldn't afford to finish it. I like how it's stated in the NIV. So we can use this principle when planning the spiritual goals that we want to have, or whatever spiritual resolutions we will make for our personal lives. We could use that goal. Plan. Set a goal that is attainable. Third point, get an accountant. We have two here, Mr. Mahabe and Carlos. So we could give them some work. What do accountants do? Accountants help businesses keep accurate records of their monetary transactions, among many other functions. They record the transactions, they analyze the data, they compile data, they perform audits, and they provide reports. So basically, they keep the company on a solid track financially if they are doing their jobs. Similarly, we can get a spiritual accountant. Many times we venture into making resolutions or goals by ourselves, but it is much easier to accomplish goals when you have somebody to account to. And what would that person do? The mere presence of having an accountant makes it more difficult for us to default on any goal that we set. Because that person will be asking you, did you fast this week as you plan to? And because you have to give an account, it is difficult to default. You want to give an accountant, your accountant, a positive record. So having a spiritual accountant in your life makes it easier to accomplish your goals. Now, in the Old Testament, the role of spiritual accountants was performed by the prophets. We all know the case of the prophet Nathan going to David after the incident with Bathsheba for him to give account of his life, of his actions. God used prophets as spiritual accountants in the Old Testament. Another example is with Samuel and Saul. Saul was given a job to go to the Amalekites, and he was told to kill, to wipe them out, to destroy them, but that didn't happen. And the accountant came because Saul had to account to God. And we have this recorded in verses 18 to 21 of 1 Samuel 15, where Samuel is speaking and he says, "And the Lord sent you on a mission and told you, go and completely destroy the sinners, the Amalekites, until they are all dead. Why haven't you obeyed the Lord?" Seeking for him to account. "Why did you rush for the plunder and do what was evil in the Lord's sight?" "But I did obey the Lord," Saul insisted. "I carried out the mission he gave me. I brought back King Agag, but I destroyed everyone else. Then my troops brought in the best of the sheep, goats, cattle, and plundered the sacrifice." And if we continue reading that chapter, we would see where Samuel tells him obedience is better than sacrifice. So Samuel was sent to Saul for Saul to account for his actions. And similarly, if we get spiritual accountants, we have to account for our spiritual actions. We have to account for attaining our goals. Who could be a good accountant for us? A mate, a sibling, someone in church, and even with technology, it could even be someone from abroad, like Mr. Henderson Andrews. He has a lot of time on his hands. He could be a good accountant. So once we set goals, get an accountant, a spiritual accountant, who will keep you on track, who will keep you from derailing. Fourth point, seek advice. Many scriptures in the Bible talk about seeking advice. Proverbs 12:15. "Fools think their own way is right, but the wise listen to others." So you may be going on a spiritual journey. You may be setting a spiritual goal. It is good to ask advice, seek counsel from other members, other people in the faith to help you accomplish this. You can ask them, how do you do this? How do you get around to do this? How do you get time to study? When do you study? When do you think is the best time to meditate? Proverbs 11:14. Without wise leadership, a nation falls. There's safety in having many advisors. And we could apply that not a national level, but to a personal level to ourselves. Many advisors, there's safety. It is recommended that advice be sought before you make any goals. This will help you in making more realistic goals. In our congregation, we have brethren with lots of experience, wealth of experience, who can give us sound advice. Speak to one of them, especially if you have set a goal previously and you were not able to fulfill it. You could ask somebody, I had planned to do such and such a thing, but I couldn't get through doing it. Sometimes because of their experience, they could tell you and help you in being successful in completing your spiritual goals. The final point for today, diligently seek God's help. Luke 11:9-10 gives us this reminder. And so I tell you, keep on asking, and you will receive what you ask for. Keep on seeking, and you will find. Keep on knocking, and the door will be open to you. For everyone who asks, receives. Everyone who seeks, finds. And to everyone who knocks, the door will be opened. So let us diligently seek God's help. Deuteronomy 4:29. But from there you will search again for the Lord your God. And these words are important. And if you search for him with all your heart and soul, you will find him. While he was on earth, Jesus Christ set the example for us of being in constant communication with his Father through prayer. We have many examples written in the 4 Gospels where he went off to pray. He was always in that communication, always in communication with God. We could follow that example. We could pray to God to help us as we embark on our spiritual journeys. So as I close, between today and tomorrow, many human beings will be engaging in this exercise, the futility of New Year's resolutions. Remember, their resolutions, many of them are just to bring physical benefits or financial benefits. As the spring holidays are drawing closer, we have 3 more months. We need to be examining ourselves, and we also need to be making setting spiritual goals, making spiritual resolutions. Our reward for fulfilling our goals and resolutions is much more important than someone who fails a physical goal or resolution. So as I close, let's just go over the points. Write the goals down. You set attainable goals. You get a spiritual accountant. Seek advice from others. You diligently seek God's help. And we have to make whatever goal we set become a habit in our lives. When that becomes a habit, we would have successfully accomplished our spiritual goal. Brethren, let's examine ourselves carefully and properly before the Passover season.